Welcome back to the Stack Check Sports Show. Today we're going to talk about quarterbacks and how I think the quarterback position is changing, and we're going to do that by kind of reacting to CBS Sports put out their quarterback power rankings as of the week, and how I think this is going to be changing, and how I think the quarterback position is changing overall in the NFL. So let's start by reacting to this. Now, this was going into Week 15, so this was before we saw what happened in Week 15, and I think the interesting part to talk about is not really the top. We'll get to the top in a moment, but it's actually lower down, where you have players like Will Levis for the Titans. You've got players like Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr, Jake Browning for the Bengals, Tommy DeVito. Now, we know Tommy DeVito kind of, again, like I said yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, DeVito's kind of fallen back down to normal. Flacco, though, looks great. Minshew looks great. And here is my point. I am wondering, as the NFL has a tendency to go through cycles, and what's the new thing going to be? You know, we've had, years ago it was defenses, and then it was offenses, and then it was spread, and then it was power, and you know, these different philosophies go around as the game improves, as the rules change, and everybody would agree that quarterback is continually becoming more and more important of a position. It runs the offense. The league is becoming more centered because of rules and the ways, you know, you can't hit certain people and you can't play defense in certain ways. The rules are favoring offense more and more, and offenses are getting more complicated, more powerful, more potent. And I wonder, and this is my take, and I haven't heard really anybody else say this, so you're going to have to let me know in the comments if I'm just completely off basis. But I'm wondering if the position of quarterback, not that it is getting less important, but that maybe, and we've seen it this year, maybe the quarterback position is going to become less and less valuable from a money perspective. This really, I think, happened to running backs. I think we've kind of hit the bottom of it, but wide receivers more recently, where, you know, it used to be you'd have one really, really strong wide receiver, you know, a Des Bryant, a Chad Ochocinco, a Randy Moss, a Terrell Owens, a Calvin Johnson. We were in that era of Julio Jones, Larry Fitzgerald. We were in this era where it was like, get your quarterback, your coach, and everything, but you really just need one wide receiver. Now you need multiple. I mean, Brock Purdy at the Niners, one of the front runners for the MVP. He's got Deebo Samuel and Ayuk and Kittle, and technically McCaffrey sometimes is playing in the slot there. Dak Prescott. Now, he's a little CeeDee Lamb dependent, but they've got some other dudes there. They've got a tight end. The rise of the tight end and the number of good quality wide receivers that are good fast. Like, receivers coming out of college now are having immediate impact. Even guys that we don't even really think about or weren't on, you know, really high-level teams. Look at what the Packers have done with their quarterback play. And having Jordan Love, and look at their wide receivers and how fast they came in. And I bring this up because I think we may be starting to see this with quarterbacks happening, where because of 7-on-7, because of quarterback coaching, because of the way the college game works, I'm noticing that we're getting a lot of quarterbacks coming out that can play, and play quickly. And I think it's going to do two things. One, I think we're going to see teams have much less leeway with their young quarterbacks. Justin Fields, sorry. Bryce Young, sorry. But I also think that we may be finding a new way to win in the NFL. And it's not necessarily a new way because it has always been a way to win. Go look at the Russell Wilson Seahawks. But is the way to win in the NFL the Brock Purdy strategy? Get a young quarterback, build a ridiculously good roster around him because he's not paying him much. Notice where these quarterbacks that have gotten some big contracts. Now, Lamar has been playing well, but he has someone in like Zay Jones, who's a young wide receiver, cheap. But Jalen Hurts, the offense has regressed. He got paid. Mahomes, offense regressed. He got paid. Tua, not that expensive. Stafford, not super expensive, when you look at some of the other quarterbacks. But their offense has had struggles because of a lack of money to pay players. Russell Wilson, Broncos, that contract's a disaster. Now, Justin Fields cheap, but they don't have anything around him. And what I'm proposing is that actually the quarterback position may be on the downtrend as far as value, as far as paying them. Yes, Patrick Mahomes is great, but we would all agree that because he's getting paid so much money, they had to let go of Tyreek Hill. They had to let go of Juju Smith-Schuster. They had to retool some of these. They had to take a chance on a Kadarius Toney. They don't have the money. And to me, I think we might be seeing a situation where, you know what? If your team wants to win Super Bowls, the Brock Purdy strategy is the right strategy. And then the question becomes, well, okay, how many Brock Purdys are there really out there? And that might be a fair statement. But I think it's going to have trickle down with some of these other quarterbacks. If you're a Joe Burrow, if you're a Patrick Mahomes, if you're a Lamar Jackson, these highly paid quarterbacks, you might want to start thinking about taking slightly less money and winning more Super Bowls. Tom Brady did. Tom Brady took very team-friendly deals when he was at the Patriots. And even to an extent at the Bucs too, although there's just not that many years there, so it's not like there were multiple deals. But he took very team-friendly deals, and that allowed them to keep the roster better around him. Mahomes has done some restructuring. I would envision Burrow, Lamar, Josh Allen. You might want to start thinking about restructuring some of your deals to be able to get in a Brock Purdy-like situation. If your goal is to win Super Bowls, I can understand maybe you just want to be rich, but I have a feeling that 99% of the dudes in the NFL at that level, they want to win games. The difference between $50 and $60 million, that's, $10 million is life-changing for anyone, but if you're already making 50, do you really need 60, right? Those kinds of situations. And that extra 10 million, that can go get you a couple of good players. Or another good player, right? Like you taking, let's say they're offering you 50 and you say, nah, I'm going to take 30. Now they got 20 million. That could be two $10 million a year offensive linemen. And I don't know, I think that'd be, sounds pretty good to me. That's what I would want. And so I think we might be in a situation, you look at the quarterbacks coming out, and this is this draft, right? If we start counting the quarterbacks that are going to be in this draft, let's take a look at them. So if we look at PFF, has their rankings of the quarterbacks coming out in this 2024 draft class. All right, here we go. We're going to count them here. Caleb Williams, I think he can play. Drake May, I think he can play. Jaden Daniels, I think he can play. Bo Nix, yeah. Penix, yep. Shedeur, seems okay. McCarthy, seems okay. Quinn Ewers? Pratt? We got 9 quarterbacks there. They are college quarterbacks, so, it's not, they're not going to be maybe day one absolute Super Bowl champions. But I think this is the new strategy. College football is producing more and more good, solid quarterbacks. Gone are the days of, there's one dude that we think can actually play in the NFL. And heck, Brock Purdy we didn't think could play in the NFL, and then, oh boy, he can. These guys that have multiple years starting, that have tons of college reps, they're coming out and they're ready to play. Gardner Minshew's, Will Levis. Brock Purdy is a great quarterback. He runs that offense incredibly well. And he makes smart decisions and he's fairly accurate. Mobile enough. I want you to ask yourselves, coming in this draft class, if you had the 49ers roster and Brock Purdy is no longer available, you're telling me Bo Nix wouldn't thrive in that offense? You're telling me Michael Penix can't throw the ball to Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle and distribute it effectively to McCaffrey? McCarthy? Quinn Ewers? Pratt? Now, again, some of these guys, they're college players, so maybe they have a little accuracy problem or whatever, but give them some more reps. I think they could figure it out. The new NFL, in my opinion, is going to be young quarterback, or if you have a star, a Patrick Mahomes, a Joe Burrow, a Lamar Jackson, I think you need to start kind of letting them know, hey, we're going to need you to take less money. We can't keep giving these huge contracts out. Lamar Jackson's Ravens are one injury away to being in serious, serious problems. Jalen Hurts, that offense is not the same. And they haven't really been hit by the cap stuff yet. Next year, I think it's even worse for them. You might start seeing some players have to leave. Mahomes, Jalen, I would say, is Mahomes last year, right? No Tyreek, but was still enough. Mahomes this year, I just don't think you trust him in good spots. Tua's a great example. I don't think there's anybody out there. I mean, maybe there are. What am I kidding myself? There's some big Tua fans out there. But in general, people agree that Tua is not Patrick Mahomes. Right? But Tua is cheap, which lets him have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle right now. Now, next year, we might have some problems with that. But his roster, that Dolphins roster is much better than the Chiefs roster. They got similar records, winning similar numbers of games. Again, there was a clip yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, talking about how if you there's 10 other quarterbacks in this league, and I think there might be more than that if you gave them the San Francisco roster, there's a chance that they would be Brock Purdy level productive, or better, but at least be able to win the same number of games. Maybe they wouldn't have quite as good of a passer rating, maybe they wouldn't throw for as many touchdowns. But this is the way to win in the NFL, in my opinion. And it surprises me why more teams don't try and go for it. Go get one of these quarterbacks. Again, there's 9 of them here that PFF rates. But with the success we're seeing of quarterbacks like Jake Browning for the Bengals, Will Levis, Tommy DeVito having a decent game, Joe Flacco coming back, Gardner Minshew, Sam Howell can ball. I mean, they're asking a lot of him. He's literally leading the league in pass attempts. Davis Mills, Case Keenum having some success. Again, what it means is, Desmond Ridder, you're not winning fast enough, you're going to be gone. Zach Wilson, you can't play, we're moving on. But be honest with ourselves. Bryce Young is not playing well in Carolina. I think if you put him on the Niners, he has a winning record. Maybe not as many wins as Brock Purdy, but maybe a winning record. And it's these young quarterbacks that make me believe that, you know what? The day of the quarterbacks getting whatever they want might be over. Might be over. We're seeing it with the Bengals. They're probably wondering a little bit why they pay Joe Burrow so much when Jake Browning comes in with this roster and looks close to as good. Not as good. And so it comes down to how much is that little extra spice that Joe Burrow has. Also, you got to give Joe Burrow credit. He's on the sidelines a bunch with the Bengals, so maybe you give some credit of Browning's success to Burrow helping him. But still, Burrow's being paid to play, not coach. How much is that extra sauce that Burrow has over Browning? How much is that worth? And I think we might start seeing, because of successes like Brock Purdy. And again, we saw this a few years ago with Russell Wilson in Seattle when he was young, on his rookie deal, going to Super Bowls. He's a wild coaching decision away from having 2 Super Bowl championships. I think that's the way to win. Pay your quarterback less, get him on young deals, go grab one of these quarterbacks, and then build your roster around them. Give them everything you can. This is why the Bears messed up with Justin Fields. They never went all in early enough. Now, yes, coach matters a lot in addition to your personnel. But the Chargers are ruining it with Justin Herbert because they're not making the coaching changes. Give these players out of college an opportunity, and I think you can win Super Bowls with it. Let me know down below in the comments what you think. I think this may be the very early signs of the quarterback position becoming less monetarily valuable. They'll still be incredibly valuable, and I think the value of a good quarterback is still going to go up from a team perspective, but there is now becoming so many good quarterbacks that I don't know if you're going to want to pay as many of them anymore. You probably still pay Lamar because he's such a unique talent. There aren't people that can replace him. Maybe Lamar, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow. That might be your... After that, I don't know that you pay anybody. Just keep cycling these new guys in. Look at what Mike McDaniels did with Tua when he came in. Tua we thought was terrible. Then he comes in, grabs Tyreek Hill, and now some people are saying they might win the Super Bowl. Look at the Colts. Holy smokes. They're terrible. They don't have the roster, but they have a good coach. Minshew Mania, baby. And they didn't look half bad with Anthony Richardson, who was incredibly raw. The Browns, they just bring in Joe Flacco after he was, I don't know, last week or a couple weeks ago, he was probably just mowing his lawn. Like, what are we... I don't know why we would be paying anybody a significant amount of money that is not... Patrick Mahomes does things that you don't see every day. Joe Burrow is the most efficient quarterback I've ever watched play the game. He just seems to always throw it to the right spot. And then Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are two freak athletes. But even Buffalo, with this resurgence where they're actually doing really well, the last few weeks, Josh Allen has been less of the focus, and that's been good for Buffalo. Because they were too Josh Allen reliant. They've found a run game. And that's why Buffalo is so scary. So that's my point. Besides maybe those top 4 guys, everyone else, I feel like, if you give them the right weapons... I mean, let's be honest here. Let's move beyond the top few. Michael Penix Jr. on the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins are too good to be able to draft him. I'm not saying that they would be able to draft him, or I think they should pick Penix. I'm just saying, Michael Penix, cheaper than Tua, on that Dolphins team, you don't think he'd be productive? I think he'd be productive. I think he'd be dangerous. Let's keep looking. J.J. McCarthy. Or Quinn Ewers. I think Quinn Ewers has got a better arm. Quinn Ewers. You put him on the Niners. I think it's probably close. And if it allows you to keep the roster, like let's say Brock Purdy wants $40 million a year, $50 million a year. He wants to become one of the highest paid quarterbacks. I'm going to say so long. I'd rather build the greatest roster in the NFL and go find somebody. Again, Ewers' big board ranking is 61. He's a second round pick. Barely. That means everybody's going to have an opportunity to grab him. You're telling me if Purdy said, hey, I'm not playing next year unless I get $50 million. I'm just going to go grab a new quarterback. Plug him in. Continue building the roster. That's what makes sense to me. Let me know in the comments if I'm crazy, and we'll see you tomorrow.